This part of the Kraken expansion, do not use. Ever.
Ever.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode in this experimental series I'm doing where I talk about my favourite expansions in games. What do they add, are they worth getting, my pros and cons of each, and how they change the game for the better. I've been starting with my favourite game, well almost favourite game of all time, Abyss. I've already talked about the Leviathan expansion, well this is now Kraken, as illustrated by a rulebook propped up against the Leviathan box, because I don't actually have the Kraken box anymore. The idea with this expansion is that this was the first one that came out of the two expansions, but it is the second of the expansions that you should get. Leviathan is, in my consideration, a must-buy. Like, it is an auto-include in every single game of Abyss. Now, granted, when I teach Abyss, I use both expansions in every game I do, because I think even when you add in the elements from this, it's still easily teachable to someone who's never played Abyss before. Once you've got the crux of Abyss in your mind, adding the expansion elements isn't really that difficult, but it's easy to extract this element from the game and not lose out too much. So it's one of those games that adds a nice little bit of extra meat, but is by no means essential. So what's the deal with the Kraken expansion? Well, it all revolves around this guy and his precious currency, the Kraken and the Nebulis pearls. Essentially, black pearls you could call them. And the deal with these is that it's a bit like the Scoundrels of Skullport expansion for Lords of Waterdeep and the Corruption in Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. It's a thing that can get you some decent bonuses and sort of accelerate you through the game, but if you're too closely associated with them, then it might cause you some problems in the long term. The idea is that this is a very special type of currency that you can get. It's difficult to get rid of though. Holding on to these at the end of the game is 1 negative point each. And if you are caught with the most of those at the end of the game, you take this cool Kraken miniature and you lose 5 points at the end. Ouch. But the cool thing with these is that otherwise they function essentially like pearls, with the one exception that you have to spend all your normal pearls, so all the normal white ones, before you're allowed to spend any of these, and you can only spend one of these per transaction. So it's almost like a sticky currency. You can be frugal with all your normal pearls, but getting rid of too many of these ones, the sticky currency as I like to call it, it's a bit more tricky. So why would you even want them in the first place? Well, it revolves around these new Kraken allies that you can get. So these are inserted into the ally deck, and essentially what they are is a wild ally. So consider that the normal allies, you spent them and you got, you know, like a 4 jellyfish, a 3 seahorse, and you were trying to get a lord, and they wanted, say, 3 different races to get the lord. I need at least pink, and I could do with 2 other colours. And you're like, oh, I've got pink, I've got blue, but that's all I've got. I haven't got any other colours. Well, if you come across these when you're exploring the depth, you could be like, oh, maybe I'll take one of them. It's wild. It can count as any faction in the game. The downside is that each one has 1, 2 or 3 Nebulis pearls at the top of its card, so when you use the card to pay for a lord, you have to take that many pearls and put them in your collection, and then of course you've got to get rid of them, as I previously explained. They also cannot be affiliated with. Nobody wants to affiliate with the Kraken. They're kind of the black sheep of this underwater family. I'm not sure how that makes sense. Is there any other creature down below that's black that would work with this analogy? Probably not. I'll move on. But the idea is that you can't use these to get extra points at the end of the game for affiliating allies. They just go away. They're back. They're done. They've served their purpose. But considering they're usually 3, 4, and 5 in value, they're pretty good and not to be underestimated. You know, when you really want that particular lord, it can be worth it in order to get one of these wild allies and go, you know what? I'll find a way to get rid of those Nebulis pearls, just let me get that lord. And speaking of lords, this expansion does throw in a few extra lords for each faction, but predominantly it adds these new Smuggler lords. The sleeves not included, you know, this is my way of pimping up the game. But these new Smuggler lords are factionless. They don't affiliate to a particular colour, so you don't have to care about how you get these, and they don't even want multiple races. It's just one colour, or even multiple races that you use. You can pretty much use any allies to get hold of them. What they essentially do though is that they usually have keys on them, or some of them don't, but you know, it's a mix, and they have effects whether you get the effect immediately after playing it or it's a perpetual effect. So they function essentially like a normal lord, except that these abilities tend to cater more towards the Nebulis pearls. So for example, I've got the Outlaw. When purchasing something, you can use 2 Nebulis. Okay, cool, I can spend more than 1 per transaction. During your turn, you can discard a Nebulis and replace it with 1 pearl. Oh great, that's a nice easy way to supplement pearls for the Nebulis ones. When purchasing something, you can use a Nebulis even if you still have pearls remaining. Okay, I can get around that rule. And immediate effect, give one of your Nebulis to an opponent. So there is that. These do have a kind of push and pull feel in the game where, because the Kraken miniature goes to whoever has the most at any particular time, it may be a case that I've got 3, somebody else has got 3, and it's like, if I can get rid of one of my Nebulis, yep, I'll spend it on that transaction. Ha, you get the Kraken now, you have the problem with the points. So you don't want to be caught with this at the end of the game, but holding on to it during the game is not the end of the world. It's just kind of like a ticking time bomb, as it were. But that's not all the lords you get. You also get 3 Sentinel lords. These require the use of a token each, and they all function the same, and they're factionless. You can hire them with anybody just like the other Smuggler lords. But the deal with these is that these allow you to reserve certain things in the game. When you play the lord, you take the token and you can place it on either a location, on a council stack, or on another lord. And by doing so, you reserve it so that only you can acquire that during the game. And it stays there permanently, providing you don't lose the lord by some other means. So you could put it on a council stack and just let it build up and build up before you eventually take it for yourself. Did the location come out that really suits you and you're afraid someone else might nick it? Then reserve it and you haven't got a problem. Or maybe there's a lord that really fits with the strategy you're going for and it's like, well, hang on, that lord's mine. I have it, not you. So it can really throw a little spanner in the works if someone is like trying to nick it off you, but predominantly it's a safety measure and just an added bonus of those lords. This is okay, it's an easy include, but personally I think the Smuggler lords are more useful. Now, all that said with the Kraken stuff, really good. I want to include it in every game of Abyss I play, but it is not essential. You can easily extract it out of the game and teach it without that element if you want to introduce like a really new player to Abyss. Perfectly fine, I enjoy using it. It just basically adds some meat to the game without being essential. But we got to address the elephant in the room. This is the one part of this expansion which is universally regarded as the worst thing that has ever entered Abyss. More so than the monster track from the original game. I mean, I can deal with the monster track, but I do say that when you get the Leviathan expansion, you can rip this up and never look at it again because it's like trash at that point. I'm not even sure why I've still got it. I just can't bring myself to... I can't bring myself to destroy components. It's just not right. But this part of the Kraken expansion, do not use. Ever.
Ever.
Seriously, do not. It is the loot deck. It introduces these new locations here, and these locations basically grant access to the loot deck. And there's, sorry, I've got one location too much here. We don't need that one. It introduces 6 locations, a couple of normal locations that you can throw into every game, but then you got these 4. They all give you access to the loot deck. The loot deck is a push-your-luck mechanic which is so swingy it's downright unbalanced. Essentially what you do is when you get hold of the location, I'm going to illustrate as best as I can, you have a loot deck and you flip a card over. And the cards are essentially numbered from 3 to 7 victory points, and they sometimes have a bonus on them, like say a token, a point token, a key, some pearls, whatever. It depends on the value of the victory point. You place it on your location and then you decide whether you want to take another card from the deck or not. You decide, yeah, why not? I'll push my luck. You flip it over, I flipped over a 5 first, now I got a 7. And I get a point token for the 5, the 7 has no bonus. I've got 12 victory points sitting there, that's fantastic. So I could stick with that and I end up with 12 points plus whatever the token was. That's a pretty big gain in points for literally just getting lucky with 2 cards. But it doesn't like stop there. I could keep going. So I could flip over another card and get a 3. And that has a key on it. So not only do I get a key, I get another 3 victory points. This is insane. How many points am I getting for this one location? I mean, trying to get more than 12, 13 points for any location in the game is pretty difficult. This is literally just by luck of the draw, giving me more than the best of locations. But then here's the worst bit in it. Let's say I decide to go even further and take a 4th card. A 4. Wow, I've just drawn 4 in a row that are completely different numbers. That's another 4 victory points and 2 pearls. I'm the luckiest man alive. And then stupidly, I go for a 5th card, which is a 6. Seriously, I'm trying to illustrate a point here. Here we go, a 7. I've drawn a card that duplicates one of the ones I've already drawn. In doing so, I still keep the bonuses that I've already earned, not the points, but the keys, the pearls, and stuff like that. But you then discard the cards that duplicated. So I would lose both 7s here, leaving me with a 5, 3, and a 4, which is still 12 points. That's still a pretty decent location and all those bonuses on top. But that was me with a stupidly lucky draw. I mean, if I kept going, I had a 6, that would have been another 6 victory points. But let's say I decided to draw and I got a 7, and then I drew the other 7. Both of them get discarded, I get no bonuses, the location has used up 3 of my lords in my collection, because bear in mind, you get these locations by like disregarding, well, like cancelling the powers on 3 of your lords. I get the loot deck, I go for it, second card, I bust, I get no points, no bonuses. The location is effectively 0 points and a waste of my time. So you can see the swing from going from that circumstance to the stupidly lucky circumstance I did a second ago. This is why this is something I never include in any game of Abyss. So much so, I might as well burn these components. It is never going to get used. Thankfully though, and so thankful, it's the easiest thing to extract out of the game. You can just take out the deck, and you can take these 4 locations and you can throw them across the room, which I'm not going to do because I'm too paranoid to do that. But essentially, you don't need to. So you can basically go, right, these cards, these locations, out of the game, we don't want them. Great. And then you never even have to teach the idea of the loot deck because it's not replicated on any other component in the expansion or on the Abyss board. Great. But I don't know what they were thinking when they put that in. It is far too swingy. It is just luck of the draw, and Abyss is not exactly devoid of luck in certain aspects of it, like rolling dice for the Leviathans in that expansion, or just luck of the lords that you get in the normal game. It's a light Euro at the end of the day. But to add something so swingy in the game like that could literally make or break the game for someone. It could seal someone's fate as the loser. It could propel somebody from 4th place to 1st place by literal luck of the draw. And that is just unacceptable in any game of Abyss. So that's my video explaining the Kraken expansion for Abyss. It's not essential, but it's definitely worth getting if you want that little bit of extra meat. Was this information useful to you? Do you like how this series is going? Let me know in the comments, give me some feedback, but also let me know what other expansions you'd like to feature on this series. I've got in mind the Civilization A New Dawn expansion, Terra Incognita, the Monsters and Minions expansion, maybe even the Fiends and Familiars one for role player. I could do Druids from Isle of Skye, Tea and Trade for Fields of Isle, Norwegians for Feast of Odin. Ooh, let's see, I mean there's Robinson Crusoe expansions, there's this War of Mine expansions, there's Mystic Vale expansions, there's all sorts that I could pick from. However, caveat, I only want to do expansions that change fundamental mechanics or add new mechanics to the game. I don't just simply want to do something like, say, an Arkham Horror expansion that just gives you more cards for decks and scenarios. You know, that's not kind of what I'm going for here. So that's it for me. Thank you for enjoying this video. I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple, and remember, as always, it's only a game. Take care, everyone.